Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Daisy, your hostess. In this video, I'm going to do a quick review of one of the books that I just put up here on the channel titled The Prophet. It actually is a poem, and it was recommended from an earlier book that I read here on this channel by U.S. Anderson, and that book was titled Three Magic Words in his chapter Success. Now I could see why U.S. Anderson would recommend that as a reading based on that chapter, since The Prophet is a book about pretty much encompassing all aspects of life. Written by Lebanese-American author Kahlil Gibran, is a book of prose poetry. It was published in 1923. And it provides a timeless spiritual wisdom on a variety of subjects, from marriage to love to law to crime and punishment, religion, death. I mean, that's just to name a few. Kahlil Gibran's family had immigrated to Boston when he was a child, and later he traveled to Paris to pursue his passion in art. And yet, here we have Kahlil Gibran's philosophy in this book, giving all men the hope of resurrection. And now for the review. And also, if you're interested in hearing this book on my channel, please do visit my book playlist, and you can either grab the whole entirety of it or segments of the poems. I'll have it all in that one playlist titled The Prophet. Kahlil Gibran starts The Prophet with a man named Al-Mustafa living on an island called Orphalese, which I think that's a beautiful name, Orphalese. It seems that the locals there consider him something of a sage, but he is from somewhere else. Pretty much, I guess the author himself was going into his own self as a traveler. And on this particular day, in this particular book, Al-Mustafa is awaiting his ship, and it had actually come into the harbor. And this is where the story starts, with the people of the town coming to bid him farewell, but not before getting answers to their most deepest questions, of which wisdom this sage was eager to share. And so on that first topic was love. And so he states, love gives naught but itself and takes naught from itself, for love is sufficient unto love. And when you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. And think not that you can direct the course of love, for love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. And that, literally, I was just like taking my breath. It was just so beautiful. I felt like I myself was breathing in love with such beautiful and profound words. Too many times in life, people want to chase somebody down because they think that that is what love is about. But love is so much more. Love is, I believe, it's almost like time. You can't grab it, but you can sense it. And so then we move on to the topic of marriage. And in that was, again, it was so beautiful. He says, stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. And coming from someone that has been married twice, one for 10 years, and second time I'm still married, and we're going on to year 31, and hopefully many, many more. I find that those are such words of wisdom, because we can stand together, but you don't want to suffocate that person. And I loved how he used the oak tree and the cypress. They're different, but yet in that same space they can grow without suffocating each other, each one growing, each one supporting each other's growth, each one enjoying of being a part of this journey. And I believe that that's what true marriage is. Two people coming together, sharing and watching each other grow, not expecting to change each other, but to witness oneself and the other. It's beautiful. And then we move on to the topic on children. And fortunately, God has given me the gift of experiencing being a parent, experiencing being a mother. And so he states, your children are not your children. Oh, man, like my heart just dropped, because I remember when my son was born and he was just an infant in my arms, and my love for him was so intense. I mean, it's like I could have squeezed him so much because of how much I loved him. And yet here was just an infant, and I was already dreading that day where he would leave. And I remember crying so hard, the kind of cry that you can't tell between the breathing and the crying. It was just so intense. And so he adds, they are the sons and daughters of a life's longing for itself. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. Oh, deep, deep. So for every new parent out there, I hope that you can hear these words because they are so true. They are so true. And then he moves on to the topic on giving. And here, as if pulling wisdom from experience, says here, there are those who give little of the much which they have, and they give it for recognition. And there are those who give and know not pain in giving, nor do they seek joy, nor give with the mindfulness of virtue. They give as in yonder valley the myrtle breathes its fragrance into space. I mean, could you imagine to give for the pure joy of giving without expecting anything in return? I would long to learn how to give that way. Even though I feel in this channel that that's what I'm doing, but I want to do it even with more passion. And then someone was asking about eating and drinking, and he had some wisdom on that. He said, would that you could live on the fragrance of the earth and like an air plant be sustained by the light. But since you must kill to eat and rob the newly born of its mother's milk to quench your thirst. This is where he actually drives it in. Let it then be an art of worship. Oh, how beautiful is that? And it reminds me of so many beautiful Native American movies, the way that they honored, life and the life that was going to nourish them. And it makes gathering at the table and praying for the food so much more precious. I'm not going to go through all the chapters that he wrote on, but definitely just a few more. The other one worthy of my mention was work. And he said, to be idle is to become a stranger unto the seasons, and to step out of life's procession that marches in majesty and proud submission towards the infinite. But the most beautiful thing that he shared as part of wisdom was that work is love made visible. And if we can put our love into the things that we're doing, it actually is just an expression of who we are. And service is everything. Maybe some of you do agree. I could tell you that to be idle is almost to say goodbye to life. But when we're working, and if we don't see work as work, but as a pleasure expression of who we are, and wonderful if that work compensates you for that, and it just adds that little extra. But nonetheless, I do agree with Kahlil Gibran that work is love made visible. The other topic that I loved how he imparted the wisdom was on clothes. He said that your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. Forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet, and the winds long to play with your hair. So it doesn't matter how much you want to cover up when your parts of you are not beautiful, and unfortunately you can't cover that up, and there's no amount of money that's going to help you cover the ugliness inside if you don't cultivate the beauty and not just put a cover on it with clothes, right? And the other one that I really enjoyed how he shared his wisdom was on the topic on buying and selling. And he says here, it is in exchanging the gifts of the earth that you shall find abundance and be satisfied. And the key part here is when he says, yet unless the exchange be in love and kindly justice, it will but lead some to greed and others to hunger. And those words just ring so much truth to me. But I really liked how he added this part where he says, invoke then the master spirit of the earth to come into your midst and sanctify the scales and the reckoning that weighs value against value. And here it is for those people that want to get something for nothing. He adds, and suffer not the barren-handed to take part in your transaction, who would sell their words for your labor. And above all, since my son is a musician, I really appreciated that Kahlil Gibran, through the prophet, values the arts. And he says, and if there come the singers and the dancers and the flute players, buy of their gifts also. For they too are gatherers of fruit and frankincense, and that which they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment and food for your soul. So it's like, hey, these people, they also need food and they need to clothe themselves. And this is what they're offering. But understand that just because you can't touch what they're offering, don't think not that your soul is not satisfied. And how many times you, my dear one, have gone to a wonderful event, and long after the event is gone, the music is still in your heart. Ah, yes, it is in mine also. And of course, the prophet did not go away without answering the questions about crime and punishment. And he said it in so many words. I'm only going to pick a few of them. He said, "It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind that you, alone and unguarded, commit at wrong unto others, and therefore unto yourself." Wow. Hello. And I can totally appreciate this, because it's almost as saying, what I loved what he did in the next couple of lines is that he separated the God self in us, the higher altruistic version of us, from the earthly low man within us. And he says, "And for that wrong committed, you must knock and wait a while unheeded at the gate of the blessed. Like the ocean is your God self, it remains forever undefiled. And of the man in you would I now speak." So then he goes on to this dissertation that he tells these people that are waiting to say goodbye to him, but don't want to leave him because they have all these questions they want to ask. And he adds that by saying, "So the wicked and the weak cannot fall lower than the lowest which is in you also." And I like that because in a biblical sense, that could be compared to the saying from the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 3, where he says, "Or how can you say to your neighbor, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' while the log is in your own eye?" So in that sense, it resonated that to me. It's like, you know what? We are no different. Don't think yourself to be pious just because you have making an effort to be on that path. But the other person is getting on their journey too. And I could tell you from being in law enforcement, because I was deputy sheriff for some time of my life, and I remembered that, you know what? I'm no different. There's a part of me that could be this sinner, given those same circumstances. And so I always pray for everyone after my shift, because, you know, we're all fighting a different fight. We all are. But what's beautiful is how he explained it at the end, because he says, "For they stand together before the face of the sun, even as the black thread and the white are woven together. And when the black thread breaks, the weaver shall look into the whole cloth, and he shall examine the loom also." And my parents used to be in the textile industry, and I have to tell you that that is a very true statement. When the thread breaks, you look at the whole material, and also you want to look at your sewing machine, make sure that there wasn't something wrong with it. That's why this thing, is falling apart. It's a whole thing, right? Okay, and the other one, which I also thought worthy of me sharing in this book review, is the one on laws. And his response, again, beautiful. And he says here, "You delight in laying down laws, yet you delight more in breaking them." And being that I come from a law enforcement background, and recently also have been a mayor to my city, and I stepped down, we make laws, and I could tell you, it's a very fine line, slippery slide. Is that what we would say? This thing about laws. And how beautiful that Kahlil Gibran brings it all home by saying, "And who is he that shall bring you to judgment, if you tear off your garment, yet leave it in no man's path?" At the end of the day, if you are doing no wrong, you don't have nothing to worry about. So, live your life, live it with the best intentions, with your face to the sun. Now here's a sad one that he talked about, but one that maybe you can relate, because I know I can, and it was the topic on pain. And he said that your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And he goes on by saying, "Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. Much of your pain is self-chosen." And so I look back at my life, and I look at all these moments where there was pain, and I wonder, how much of it did I bring? Did I cause this? I've reconciled with my pain and understand that because of it, I value it so much more, but I also appreciate and I am more compassionate with the pains of others. So, in true, pain does offer us understanding. My, I think this Kahlil Gibran is a wise man indeed. And of course, as a Sagittarian that I am, on the topic of self-knowledge, I had to actually dive in there. And this was the answer that the prophet, through Kahlil Gibran, offered. It says here, your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights. Hello, our hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights. So whether we're awake or whether we're asleep, we know everything. It's in the silence that we know these answers, because they seem like secrets, but you know what? Secrets are they not. This is why I have no issue reading these beautiful books, because there is nothing new under the sun. Yes, we get these new philosophies and these new ideas, and we package them for words of today so that the people of today can understand them. But there is so much truths in these books, I have to tell you, because guess what? We've known these answers. And it's just sometimes we've got to hear them with a new twist, right? Because, of course, it seems that many of us are like doubting Tom. We need to stick our hand in the wound to know that it's real. So he says, you would know in words that which you have always known in thought. How many of you have had that situation where somebody said something and you're like, I knew that all along, right? Well, it has happened to me many times. And there were a couple more beautiful words in this section, such as, let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure, for self is a sea boundless and measureless. And say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path, for the soul walks upon all paths. Tell me, does that not leave you breathless? It leaves me breathless. It's so beautiful. I am skipping over a few, but definitely I'm going to touch upon 3 more that they're just so beautiful. His wisdom on teaching, it says here, no man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. Wow, deep. He adds, the astronomer may speak to you of his understanding of space, but he cannot give you his understanding, for the vision of one man lends not its wings to another man. Wow. What I see doesn't mean that you can fly, because I can possibly fly. Some people don't have the vision. They can't see. You can explain it to them so many times, so many ways, but they're not going to get it. They have to have their own understanding, their own knowledge. And to teach someone is one thing, but to give them that knowledge is a whole different thing. And I have been a teacher, not an academic, but in business. And I could tell you, it's sometimes I wish I could have just taken like what was in my brain and put it in that person's brain and go off, because then I could continue with the business. But I had to spend time to train someone to teach, but the knowledge is something that you gain through experience and so many other little things that you've got to do. But this is so beautiful that the prophet shares. And even as each one of you stand alone in God's knowledge, so must each one of you be alone in his knowledge of God and his understanding of the earth. So it's like no matter how much explanation someone can give you of God, it's something that is yours alone. And I could tell you from my conversations with my husband and like I could see him when I'm speaking of God, the way that I feel and sense God and commune with God. I see him sometimes glaze over. But then also when he speaks of God, I sit back quietly and am just amazed at how wonderful this Creator is that can speak so many languages to all of us so that we can have that communion specifically and specially with it. Beautiful. There was also someone asking the prophet about time, and the answer just left me floating on a cloud. And this is what the prophet said. You would measure time, the measureless and the immeasurable. I love that response. It's almost like you are so arrogant that you think you can measure time. And because it's immeasurable and it's measureless. Yet he does add, of time you would make a stream upon whose bank you would sit and watch its flowing. It's like, you know what? You could just sit there and watch this thing go on forever and ever. But he adds this, yet the timeless in you is aware of life's timelessness. And of course, think about it. You're sitting there and you're trying to grab the next second and the next second and the next second. And before you know it, you look back and you've created a past, but you still haven't been able to grab the time because you keep trying to grab the next second. And it's just so elusive, right? Magic this time thing is, right? And here is one of the most beautiful questions. That obviously it took the seeress to ask that question, and it was on death. And the prophet said, you would know the secret of death. I mean, it was just a statement. You would know the secret of death. And then he adds, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? Think about that. I mean, just take a minute, stop this video, and ask yourself, how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? It is the living and this passion for life that lets you understand death. It's this greater appreciation of it. Because he adds, for life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. Where did Kahlil Gibran get such beautiful words, but from source? Because their answers are so profound that you could just sit there and it may mean something to me, but I feel that it can mean something to you, and yet both of us can be satisfied in the answer. But he actually now adds some real truths in here. And what is it to cease breathing, but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Imagine that we can be this helium balloon, just expanding and just unifying with the ether. He finishes up by saying, only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. I can say no more about that. It's just really beautiful. And of course, there's the next section where the prophet does bid farewell in this very long monologue, and very beautiful indeed. At the end is what gives us hope for a greater tomorrow. I hope that you're going to enjoy this book as much as I did. Please do visit my book playlist, and it's in there. It's in entirety, or you can just grab a couple of the poems if you prefer that. Share it with your friends, and if you like what you hear here and maybe what you see, then I invite you to subscribe, definitely like, and leave me your comments. Let me know you were here. And until we meet again at the next video, be blessed.